Hello, my name is Dan. I'm a designer at Stirkits Automated System Solutions, and today we're going to be taking all the parts from the CC Quilter, which you see here, and we're going to mount it onto our little Gracie 2 quilting frame. And these instructions will guide you through how to add this to your system. It's relatively easy. You need some 7/16 inch wrenches, 2 of them, and a 1/4 of an inch drill bit and drill. And that should be all you need to install this. So let's get going. Okay, so here's our little Gracie 2 frame, and we're going to be installing the CC Quilter automation system on it today. You can see that I've taken most everything off of it just to make this easier. You shouldn't have to take off your stitch regulator or anything else if you're using one. This is the horizontal axis, the x-axis. This will be the vertical axis, the y-axis. And we've got our vertical Y stepper assembly. Here we're going to be mounting. And mounting these is very simple. You're not going to be able to do it with the machine on it. You'll have to take the machine off. But to figure out where this should be placed is simple. You simply take off the nuts and bolts, and the machine likes to move on its own. Okay. Then we're going to take the stepper assembly, and where the throat of the machine is here, that's about where we want to center the stepper assembly. And we want to center this way, about even with the top of this. These aren't exact, there are some adjustments we make later. So, you hold this up. Now, if you can tell with the little Gracie 2 frame, these was designed to go on here. You may have to drill different holes in different places to get it to mount in about the same position. So, that's where it's going to be. We would take a pencil, put it through the 2 holes, mark it, and put the bolts and nuts back on. Or drill a hole, then put the nuts and bolts back on. Okay, so that's step 1. I'm going to take the machine off and do that right now. Alright, when this is mounted, it should be a 2-inch long that was in here, through the washer, through the inside of the hole. I recommend you put the nut on the outside so that we don't get anywhere near the machine on the inside to scratch it. Through here. To the holes we drilled. Washer. Washer. Nut and a nut. And tighten. Now I'm using just 2 open-ended, or 2 7/16 inch wrenches. You can use a socket wrench set if you like. Vertical or Y axis stepper assembly connected. I'm just going to drop the wires back here, get them out of the way a little bit. Okay. Now we notice this has already had the belt installed in it, and it's around the stepper axis. The teeth gears are down. What we're going to do now is we're going to need to mount the front rail assembly. Okay. This is going to mount to the base here, so that the stepper pulls back and forth against the belt that's fixed on this bottom horizontal axis tray. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take off the nuts and bolts. And we're going to take this eyelet in a tie wrap. And we're going to tie wrap from the top through the bottom and just tie wrap the pulley assembly together here to lock it in place around the eyelet. So now I'm using a pair of wire snippers to snip off the excess. Now what we need to do is take this assembly and line it up on the front of our machine, as so, looking down it to make sure that the belt is straight, horizontal, not leaning out or in anyway, and make sure that it's fairly parallel here, because we want the stepper assembly to be able to come right up to this, and it can only do that if it's horizontal. If it's a little bit vertical or down a little lower, it won't make too much of a difference, but it shouldn't be too far off. Once we've got the position, we use the 2 holes, mark them, and then we drill through the center. Now, mine are already pre-drilled because this was a unit that I've installed this on before. So, I'm now going to, after I drill the holes, I'm going to be putting these on and pushing the bolts through it. Now, I won't be able to do the nuts assemblies and everything else at the moment because I can't get to the back of it this way. So I'm going to need to tip the machine sideways or lift it up to get underneath to do this. I'm going to do that right now. I'll lift the whole carriage assembly up, put it down. Now I can get a washer and a nut on the insides of each of these pieces and tighten them. And then I'm going to tighten them. Assembly, the vertical Y-axis assembly mounted to the machine, the belt going over to the eyelet, and the strip of steel across the front. Now, to make this easier to put on the horizontal or Y stepper assembly, I'm going to actually turn this table around. I have my quilting machine pretty much up against the wall, so to get behind it to show you this part would be a little difficult. So I'm going to move this machine around to get to the back of it, which is where we will be assembling our horizontal or Y-axis stepper assembly. Okay, here's our horizontal or X-axis assembly we're going to be mounting, and we're going to use the same technique. We're going to line it up on the back, use a pencil to mark 2 locations where we drill a couple of 1/4-inch holes, and then mount it. So we're going to take off our screw bolts. Now I'm not going to do this, but what you should do is push these bolts right out so that you can put a pencil right down through the center of this to mark the location in the back. And there's again, there's a couple of critical dimensions or critical spots to be concerned about. And that is, when you hold this here, this eyelet is going to need to line up with the stepper belt from the left to right point. So it's going to need to be pretty much straight so that as the stepper motor and the gear come towards it, it'll line up in the center of this. Now this could go up and down a little bit to adjust for making this parallel or even up and down, but we need to try to get it as close to possible front and back. We can always bend this a little bit this way. This is longer in the back. Bend it a little bit to get it if you haven't got it quite on there. Now I've already got pre-drilled holes there, so I'm not going to have to drill any holes out. But this is how this would mount. And again, if you have a different machine or a different frame, these these assemblies can be made so that they fit almost any machine. And we put a washer and a nut, and then we tighten. If you have any trouble with the bolt sliding back out on it, just take a screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, so just kind of tap the bolt in. And washer and nut. These are locking nuts. There are no lock washers on this design at all. I find that the locking nuts work much better. Then we tighten them. Now that we have it mounted, we have this eyelet here. We're going to do the same thing we did on the other side. We're going to tighten this up. We don't want too much slack in it. Don't over tighten it. Just enough so that the machine bed just can't really move except for the stretch of the rubber here. And put a tie wrap on it. Now, the thing to note is if you ever want to go back to non-automated, if you have a stitch regulator and you want to run this thing by hand, simply snip off the tie wraps and let the belt just drop. And then you'll be able to run the machine with no problem. With this belt on, you can move it when the electronics are not connected or tied on, but you run the risk of stripping the belt and stripping the gear on, or the stepper motor. You can see I can move it. Okay. So, now that we have this on, I'm going to bend this in a little bit because it was a little bit off on my unit, and that should be fine. And then we have to look to make sure it's parallel. I need to move it down just a little bit. Untighten this. As the machines get older, sometimes the belts can stretch a little bit. These can be adjusted in and out as necessary. There's a nut on each side. Simply use that to adjust it the way you want. Okay, so I needed to move it down just a little bit. And that looks good. Okay. And tighten it up again. Okay, so now we have the vertical axis on, the y-axis, back and forth, front and back, and we have the stepper that's going to do the horizontal, left and right, the belt attached. So now we're going to turn the machine around, and we're going to mount the brackets onto it that are going to hold the ends of these belts. The brackets, this is going to be a little difficult to see, so I'm going to have to move the camera, but we have two brackets. We have two brackets. One has a short and one has a long one. And what's going to happen is we're going to take these and mount them, one to the outside leg on the right side, and then one to the left-hand leg on the left side. And the belt is going to be tie wrapped between these two from the horizontal or X stepper axis. Okay, so we want to tie the belt to the left side because we're going to be installing that one first. And then once we do, we just simply pull it over, let the machine roll, and then we adjust it, we set it up onto the outside leg, and then once it's on that outside leg, we make sure that the belt is horizontal so the machine will go easily horizontal. We also want to make sure that there is a horizontal up and down adjustment with this eyelet, so that's not as critical. But the left and right is to keep the belt the same distance from the front of the, or from the back of the machine to the belt, whether it's be down here or down there. So we want that to stay stable. Okay. So I've gone ahead and tie wrapped the left side, which I'm going to be doing the installation on first, since I can get the camera down that end. The other end I can't get the camera to very easily, so I'm not going to show you that. The procedure is the same. You simply get everything lined up horizontally. We're going to drag this down the end, drill a couple holes, mount the bolts, and then we're going to do the same on the other end, except we're going to hold that up and then tie wrap it so that we use up all the slack in the belt. And then we'll do the same thing. Okay. I don't don't know if you probably can't see this, but I'm using this frame, the edge bracket, to just move the entire machine down to the side. I'm going to take off the bolts so I can mark my positions of where I want to mount this onto the side rail here. Again, if your frame is different than this frame, we can make brackets. These are made out of wood. They're made out of high-grade plywood, and they're all CNC cut. So once we make one for a particular brand of frame, we can do it for anything. And I'm just going to hold this here and check to make sure that the belt is parallel. This belt is parallel, and it's going to be in the same position from the machine belt to the top and from this bracket belt to the top. Then I'm going to mark my holes, make sure it's the same distance across from it, and then I'm going to mark my holes, drill them. Mine are already pre-drilled here because I've taken this off. And mount it, and then put a washer on, and a nut, and a washer and a nut, and that'll be it for this side. Then we go to the other side, do the exact same thing, and tighten the belt on there too. And then the entire installation of our assemblies onto the machine are done. Next, I'll show how to hook up the system and connect the electronics. Okay, with our machine all set up, our X and Y steppers are all installed, tightened. We have an electronics control box. It's made out of very heavy, durable steel. There's a fan assembly in here to keep it cool. Please do not mount this in a way where it blocks this. This could be mounted, it was designed to be mounted up underneath the bed, so it was up vertical. I tend to rest it on a shelf that I've mounted down here, so I never mount it, I just rest it. There's a power supply, an AC cord that plugs into the power supply. This is your on and off switch. When this is plugged in, the electronics are active. When it's unplugged, it's inactive. And a USB cable. So the power supply is going to connect, and this has a little back and forth. That's how you would remove it if you wanted to. And it is keyed, so it only goes in one way. And then it locks itself in place. There is an X-axis, a Y-axis, a USB plug, and something labeled switch. This is going to be used for future expansion. Currently, the software will work with machines that have a stitch regulator or don't have a stitch regulator. The problem is that we're only supporting units that have a stitch regulator right now. This is to add a feature where it will control the foot pedal itself, so you don't even need a stitch regulator, and you can save yourself that money. So there's an X-axis and a Y-axis. The X is the horizontal, the Y is the vertical, and we're going to connect those up now. The cables are quite long enough to go to each end of the machine, as long as this box is mounted towards the center of the machine. And then the cables can be tie wrapped and just left hanging down in the back so that you can move with the machine and the box doesn't. So, X-axis is going to go, this is the Y-axis, goes into the Y port. And the X-axis goes into the X port. These should be, there should be screws that are supplied with this so that you can screw this together. It's not necessary, but you don't want these to come unplugged while the machine is operating. And then a USB cord. And for now, I'm going to leave this all on top of the table with just the cord hanging in the back, so I can show you the machine actually moving. Okay, so I've connected my CC Quilter box to my computer. I use a touchscreen computer, and I also use an Xbox, wireless Xbox interface to it, so I can use an Xbox 360 controller to start, stop the machine, move it around, whatever I want it to do. But for now, I'm going to be just showing you. Okay, and I'm going to plug the machine in. software to connect to the hardware. Connect it. I'm going to do what's called creating a new workspace, so I create a blank workspace. And I'm able to move the machine back and forth. So let me zoom out a little bit more so you can see this better. Well, okay. So I'm moving the machine with the keyboard arrows right now. I've got it set on slow mode or medium, and it's moving back and forth. I can change the speed of the movement, a little slower, and then fast. These speeds can be adjusted for manual operation. They can also be adjusted for the pattern. So that's the installation of a CC Quilter machine. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much. There will be a demonstration of the software. The software for this machine can be downloaded and executed freely. It runs as a simulation mode so that you can see on the screen what your machine needle would be doing, and so you can get a feel for the software to see how easy it is to use. There will be another video done on this with me actually running the software so that you can get an idea how to use it. It's pretty simple, and that's all I can say about the installation. Hello, Dan here. I'm a lead developer for Stirkits Automated System Solutions, and what I'm showing you here is the automation used with a little Gracie 2 frame, quilting frame, at Janome 1600p, and the from Gracie as well, the stitch regulator. In the future, we're going to be providing a product where you can no longer use the stitch regulator, or you shouldn't have to use it, which will reduce your cost about $600 that you can put towards this automation. The automation is fairly inexpensive, but I wanted to show this in action to give you an idea of the kind of intricate patterns it's able to do. This pattern, one pass, takes about 15 minutes, and for that 15 minutes I can do something completely different. It's a very easy installation. The installation can be done in less than an hour from all the parts supplied. The software works much like a tape recorder. It's very easy to use. It'll run PC Quilter patterns. In the very near future, I plan on providing a pattern generation program that you can get for free, so you can even save the cost of the pattern generation program.